God loves to use the insecure. God loves to use the unlikely. And number 3, this is probably my favorite one. God uses the broken. I'm really glad about that, because I'm a broken person. And I'm sure that all of you could point to areas that are broken in your life too. I think there's a reason God uses the insecure, the unlikely, and the broken, because I don't know that there's anyone else to pick from in this world. But God loves to use the broken. Luke chapter 22, verses 60 through 62. And let me set this up. This is moments after Jesus is arrested. He's prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane. He's told the disciples numerous times that he would be arrested, that he would be put on trial, that he would be executed. And they were still kind of living in denial, but now it's happened. The flaming torches and the swords and the soldiers and the religious leaders have shown up. They've put Jesus in chains and they've taken him away. And just before that, Jesus and Peter had a conversation where Jesus again told him that would happen. And Peter, being Peter, if you know Peter, he just didn't have any problem just speaking just straight up about what he thought. He said, "Never, Jesus, I will be with you to the end. I will not disown you. I will never run away, man. I'll defend you to the death." And Jesus said, "Peter, Peter, Peter, before this night is over, you're going to deny that you even know me 3 times. No way, Jesus." And in my best 1980s vernacular, Jesus said, "Way." Some of you remember that. It's going to happen, man. So at this point in this verse, Peter's already denied him twice. It's the wee hours of the morning, and it said after they took Jesus and arrested him, Peter followed at a distance, kind of hiding behind trees and stuff, and watching. And he's already denied him twice. He's been confronted. And here, Peter has been confronted by another person who says, "You are one of them. I know. I've seen you with him. And besides that, you're a Galilean." Now let me tell you the significance of that. If somebody walked in here today and we knew that everybody that had been part of Jesus' followers were from Boston, and we were all watching his arrest and checking it out, and there was one guy among us who said, "Don't park your car in the harbor. You'll get water in it." We'd say, "Wait a minute, dude. You aren't from around here." Right? Your speech gives you away. That's what's going on here with Peter. They're like, "You're one of them, man," because Jesus' 90% of his ministry happened up in Galilee. And so they just knew, man, you're one of them. Here's what Peter responds to them with. "Man, I don't know what you're talking about." And just as he was speaking, the rooster crowed. Remember, Jesus said, before the rooster crows. Now listen, here's what happens next. "And then the Lord turned and looked straight at Peter." That shakes me. Can you imagine Peter denying Jesus, looking, and there's Jesus looking right at you? It just happened and the rooster crowed. Wow. And then Peter remembered the word that the Lord had spoken to him. "Before the rooster crows today, you will disown me 3 times. And he went outside and he wept bitterly. Peter was shattered. The Lord of his life, he denied that he even knew him publicly, loudly, fervently 3 times. But in the final chapter of John, you could go home and read it today. John, I think it's chapter 21 is the last chapter. It's amazing. Jesus restores Peter and makes him one of the most powerful leaders and preachers of the gospel of all time. Straight out of the gate, his first message on the day of Pentecost, 3,000 people came to know Christ. That's pretty awesome. God can use you, friend. 2 Corinthians chapter 12 tells us the story of Paul. He was a broken man in a lot of ways. Paul in this chapter is talking about a struggle, a physical ailment that he had that was a major burden to him. And he'd prayed fervently for God to remove it from his life. And in verse 9 here we get the response. Paul's telling us what the Lord said back to him after he asked God to remove it. It says, "But the Lord said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My grace is enough for you. For my power is made perfect in weakness." You see, you won't really experience the fullness of God's power and grace in your life till you go through some dark times. It's in the dark times. Nobody wants to go through dark times. But it's in the dark times that God gets our attention. It's in the dark times that we fall to our knees and come to the end of our rope and figure out Jesus is all I got. And it's in those moments we realize He's all I need. And man, His power is made perfect in our weakness. And so Paul says, well, if that's the case, then I'm going to boast all the more about my weaknesses so that Christ's power may rest on me. Paul just embraced it. He said, okay, I'm going to boast about my brokenness and what I can't do. I know this is different than what the world talks about. But Paul says, oh, well then if it's about being broken and weak, then pour it on, God. I'm weak, I'm insecure, I'm unlikely, I don't think I can do it, but that makes me perfectly situated to be used by God in an awesome way. So I'm going to boast about my brokenness because I know that God uses insecure, unlikely, broken people for His glory. And when good things happen, I'll be able to say, hey, it ain't me. I'm not the hero of this story. God is. And that's what it's all about.